There's currently a fairly good chance that I have accidentally acquired a two-ton movie star. I kid you not. And no, that was not part of my business plan for August. Now, if you haven't met Brucie before or seen him in some of my content, because he appears quite frequently, Brucie is my horse, one of my horses. Calling him a horse perhaps undersells the situation slightly. He's a draft horse, a Belgian draft, and he is enormous. Now, I affectionately call him My Little Pony, which is ridiculous because he's approximately 2 ton and looks more like something that should be wandering around in the Jurassic period. But without doubt, he is my absolute unicorn. And this week, completely unexpectedly, I was approached by people who train horses for film and television. Now, there aren't a huge number of horses like Brucie around anymore. They're getting quite rare and endangered. And apparently, that is one of the reasons that they are particularly interested in him. Now, the current proposal is that if I agree to it, he's going to go away for about 4 weeks so that they can assess him. They want to see how trainable he is, how adaptable, how he responds to unusual situations, how he copes with things going on around him. And if everything goes well, then there's a genuine possibility that at some point next year, Brucie could end up appearing in a film, which is hilarious and slightly terrifying because the last thing this horse needs is an even bigger ego. But the whole thing, as so often does, got me thinking. Because clearly this wasn't planned. It wasn't something I'd scheduled or manifested, or, I didn't sit down at the beginning of August and write Monday, content, Tuesday, client work, Wednesday, prepare horse for Hollywood. Life just arrived. And that's what life does and why it is so exciting and beautiful. Sometimes it arrives in a difficult way. Sometimes it arrives in an absolutely wonderful way. Sometimes it brings you things you could never have anticipated. And yet, so many businesses are designed around the assumption that life will be relatively predictable. We build our operating model around ideal weeks. We assume that we'll have Monday mornings, Tuesday afternoons, Thursday between 9 and 3. We assume that children will be where they're supposed to be, that everybody will be healthy, that clients won't change their mind, deadlines won't shift. We assume nothing fascinating will suddenly happen to a 2 ton horse. And then real life pops up and says, "Hi, remember me?" No, we're not doing that this week. And the business starts to wobble. So that's what I want to talk about today. How do you keep a business, or how do you build a business that keeps moving when your week doesn't go according to plan? Because I don't think, in fact, I'm sure the answer is not to become more disciplined. You don't need another planner. You don't need a productivity system telling you to wake up at 4 a.m. in the morning. And I certainly don't think the answer is sacrificing more of your life to keep the wheels of your machine running. I think the answer is fundamentally about changing what the business depends on. Now, one of the things I see constantly with established business owners is that their business works beautifully under very specific conditions. They need enough time, energy, concentration, childcare, headspace. And if all of those conditions appear miraculously at the same time, the business works. Marketing happens, prospecting happens, follow ups, clients get produced, client work gets completed, the inbox gets answered, everybody's happy. It's tickety boo. Then something changes. The children are home for 6 weeks, someone gets ill, the cat throws up, a family member needs support, you take a holiday, you decide you actually want to have a life, heaven forbid, and suddenly the business is running at half capacity. And that tells you something incredibly important. The problem isn't your schedule. The problem is that too much of the business has been attached to your schedule. And once you see the difference, you can start fixing the problem, or the right parts of the problem. Because if you believe the problem is your schedule, you're going to spend your life trying to create a better one. You'll block time, reorganize, wake up earlier, work later, create color-coded calendars. I've got a stash. You'll tell the children not to disturb you. Wait until September. Wait until Christmas. You'll wait until the client project is finished. You'll wait for life to become calm. Right? But if the actual problem is that the business is too dependent on you, none of those things will fix the issue. You've just temporarily created better conditions for a fragile operating model. And sooner or later, life's going to change again because that's what it does. Now, there's a sentence that I think should set alarm bells ringing in any business owner's head. I'll get back on top of it when? When the school holidays are over? When this launch is finished? When the client finishes their contract? When the kids go back to school? When the summer's over? When Christmas is done? When life settles down? There's always going to be another when. And I know this from experience. My life is not particularly predictable, as many of you will know if you've followed me on my crazy, crazy journey. I've got kids, I've got animals, I've got a farm, I've got family responsibilities. There's always something happening. At the moment, Isaac, my little boy, he is about to turn 8. And Isaac's 8th birthday party is apparently an international logistical event. He has requirements. He has lists. There are friends. There are dates he wants people to come over. Then there's the party. There's the very strict chocolate cake requirement. There will be party food, which, if previous children's parties are anything to go by, will consist predominantly of beige. And I already know that the house is going to be chaos. And at exactly the same time, we have an increasingly ambitious treehouse project now happening. I call it a treehouse. I think it's had an extension. It's now working towards becoming a treehouse city. Isaac drew the plans. Marley attempted to read them upside down twice. Eventually worked out roughly what Isaac was asking for, and rather than carrying on with the job he had planned to do that afternoon, he started to build the treehouse. I say that loosely. We're now well beyond treehouse. I think we're heading towards an episode of Grand Designs. Actually, there are floors, there are ladders, windows, doors. We've had breakfast up there on more than one occasion, and in fact, I am going to check whether Wi-Fi reaches there, because there's very good chance that some of my content is going to start being recorded from the treehouse very soon. But I love that. That is my life, and I don't want my business to be the reason that I'm unable to enjoy these things. Which means the answer for me cannot be Rachel needs a more consistent diary. Hell no. I'm a free spirit. I want to just screw the moment. That's a good idea. That looks fun. Let's go do it. I don't want a more consistent diary. I want a business that is strong enough to cope with the diary I choose. And that is a very different ambition. I want to introduce a term here that matters enormously. Founder dependency. Now, founder dependency is simply the extent to which your business needs your personal involvement for the things that have to happen. Every founder-led business will have some founder dependency, and that is perfectly normal. If people buy your expertise matters. If you're the person making the strategic decisions, you need to make those strategic decisions. If you create intellectual property, your brain and your thinking matters. If your clients have hired you, some of those client relationships are going to need you. We're not trying to remove the founder from the business entirely, and that is the point here. We're trying to remove the unnecessary founder dependency, the thing that simply stops when you're not there. For example, if marketing only happens when you personally remember to create it, that's a founder dependency. If prospects only get found when you spend an hour looking for them, that's founder dependency. If follow-ups only happen when you remember somebody exists, that's dependency. If invoicing is waiting for you, if routine reports are waiting for you, if every decision, no matter how small, has to come through you, if a team member can't progress because you haven't answered something, they're signals. The signs are there. But here's the question I think every business owner should stop and answer. If I vanished from my business for 7 days, what would stop? Not what would be slightly less perfect, or what would I prefer to oversee, or what would I actually stop doing. Would new opportunities be entering the pipeline? Would no leads get identified? Would sales follow-ups disappear? Would your content stop? Would your onboarding stop? Would people start emailing you because they didn't know what to do next? Would every client delivering fall apart? That list tells you where your business is structurally fragile. Now, consistency doesn't mean you're doing the same thing every week, and I think we misunderstand business consistency. We often hear you must be consistent. Be consistent with your marketing, your prospecting, your content, your follow up. And we translate that as I need to personally perform those activities consistently. But that isn't true. We need to be consistent, or what needs to be consistent is the outcome. Marketing should continue, prospecting should continue, relationships should be nurtured, clients should continue to be supported, admin should continue being processed. But none of those automatically mean you should personally execute every single step. And that distinction matters. Because when I think about my business, that is ultimately the philosophy underneath everything. I'm not interested in AI because I think everybody needs a clever robot working for them. AI is a mechanism. The outcome is, how do I make the business less dependent on my consistent availability? And sometimes AI is part of that. Sometimes automation is, sometimes delegation, sometimes a standard operating procedure. Sometimes it's a checklist or a clearer decision. The technology is secondary, the business design comes first. Before so I want to now make this a bit more practical. I want you to think about everything you currently do and put it into one of four categories. Category 1, only I can do this. This is genuine founder work, strategic decisions, your expertise, your creative thinking, high value conversations, relationships where your involvement matters, personal leadership, work that genuinely requires your judgment. We protect this. This is not what we're trying to automate in any way, shape, or form. Category 2, someone else could do this. This is your delegation area. Perhaps you're doing it because you always have. Perhaps you're doing it because you haven't trained anybody to help you. Perhaps you're doing it because you don't trust anybody with it yet. Or you believe explaining it will take longer than doing it yourself. And the last one, trust me, is particularly dangerous. Because yes, explaining something once may take longer than doing it once. But if you do it 50 times, well, suddenly that argument becomes fairly ridiculous. Category 3, a system could do this. And this is where the repeatable work belongs, the things that I talk about all the time. Moving information, creating reminders, checking defined conditions, routine research, scheduling, simple categorization, repetitive data tasks. This is where automation is incredibly powerful. And then we have the fourth category, which people tend to forget. Category 4 is nobody needs to do this. Stop. Delete it. This is one of my favourite categories because business owners accumulate work. Processes stay because they've always existed. Reports are created because somebody once asked for one. We post on a platform because we once decided we should. We maintain things that where nobody actually uses them. Sometimes the greatest productivity system in the world is stop doing that damn thing. And I think businesses would become much calmer very quickly if we got honest and got better at doing that. Something else happens inside a founder-led business as well. The founder often gives the business their best hours for tasks that require the least of their capability. You get to your desk, you have energy, you're buzzing, you've had your coffee, you have 2 uninterrupted hours. You open your inbox, or LinkedIn, or your admin, and you start looking for prospects. You check things, and before you know it, your clearest thinking time is gone. You've used your most valuable resource on the least founder-specific activity, and that is the wrong way around, my friend. Your best capacity should go towards work that creates disproportionate value. Thinking, solving, deciding, creating, talking to people, building relationships and supporting your clients. The repetitive work, well, that should fit in and be built around that rather than compete with it. Now, a lot of you will know that I have a 10-hour working week rule, and that's where this has been such an interesting experiment. Because when I started my business, AI Alchemy, I committed to working 10 hours a week. That was it. Broadly, I work for around 2 hours in each morning before the kids get up, and then I'm done. Now, that boundary forces you to be quite ruthless because 10 hours disappear very, very quickly. I can't afford to spend 6 of them doing something that doesn't actually, really, truly need me. And one of the things that happened this summer really brought home how much this has changed our lives. Isaac, my little man, said to me, "Mummy, have you quit your business?" And I thought that was wonderful because, from his perspective, apparently I have. He doesn't see me constantly working. He doesn't see me saying, "I'll be out in a minute, babe. Just need to finish this. Mummy's got a deadline." Not now. He sees me with him. We go out, we work on projects, we paint the treehouse, we play with the animals, we have days together, we're doing summer. And meanwhile, AI Alchemy is a business that's doing incredibly well. Things are happening, people are being supported, marketing's going out, the team is working, the sales activity is happening, development is happening. Now, that didn't happen because I magically became ultra productive. It happened because I started making decisions about what should and shouldn't get my time. And I still have work to do there. It's not a finished article that you're looking at here. Businesses evolve and new dependencies appear. Processes need improving, but the principle is incredibly simple. My children should not have to compete with repetitive business tasks for access to me. And frankly, neither should I. My life is not the interruption. And there's something else I want to challenge while I'm on this soapbox. We talk about life as though it interrupts work. Sorry, I got interrupted. The kids interrupted my working day. My plans went AWOL. But what if we've got that backwards? What if life is not about interrupting the business? What if the business is supposed to support the life we choose to live? Because that may sound philosophical, but commercially it matters. Because if you build your business, your operating model around the belief that the work comes first and that life must fit around it, you will make very different decisions. You will add tasks without questioning them. You'll accept founder dependency. You'll work long hours. You'll treat time off as something you have to earn. But if the purpose of the business is to create a life you actually want to inhabit, the design criteria changes. Now we're asking, can this operate when I'm not here? Can this process continue when the kids are home? Can inquiries still happen if I'm on holidays? Can opportunities still enter the pipeline when I have unexpected week occurrences? That creates a much healthier business model, and I would argue a more commercially resilient one. Now let's talk specifically about sales, because this is one of the places where consistent schedules can cause enormous damage. A very common founder-led sales process looks like this. Things get quiet, founder thinks, need more clients. Founder goes prospecting, founder finds people, founder sends messages, conversations begin. Founder gets busy delivering the new work, prospecting stops, pipeline empties, founder completes client work, founder notices, pipeline's empty, founder panics, prospecting begins again. That's not a sales cycle, that's a panic cycle. And it happens because top of the funnel activity is attached directly to founder capacity. And when the founder has time, we're tickety-boo, the leads are there. But when the founder doesn't, we're in a very different situation. Then there is a delay before the commercial consequences appear. And this is what catches people out. You can start prospecting today and your revenue probably doesn't collapse tomorrow. But in 3 weeks' time, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, you'll feel it. And then you're trying to solve a problem that actually started weeks earlier. And this is exactly the kind of activity I believe needs consistency without requiring the founder to personally create it. Finding qualified people to start conversations with should not disappear because your summer got fun or busy. And that is where Connection Scout fits in. Connection Scout sits inside the AI philosophy beautifully. It's not designed to replace the human part of sales. In fact, quite the opposite. The relationship is the most important part of any business. Your judgment still matters, and the conversation is crucial. When somebody is genuinely a good fit, that is so important. What I don't think you need to be doing is spending your time, your founder hours, manually hunting for people to begin those conversations with. Conversation Scout is designed to remove that repetitive prospect finding stage and deliver relevant prospects to you consistently. So instead of, I must remember to go find people this week, the process becomes, here are the people worth looking at now. Now I can use my time having actual conversations. And that's a very different situation to be in because we're not removing humanity, we're protecting it. The system does the repetitive bit, and in my opinion, quite boring part. You do the relationship bit, and that's a lot more fun. And this is how I think automation should work, not by replacing the work that makes you valuable, but by removing what work gets in the way of it. Now, I'll hear you saying, yeah, but I can do that myself, which is one of the objections I hear around systems generally, on an awfully regular occurrence. And of course, you can. You are entirely capable, but your ability is almost never the question. I can clean my own house, I can do my own accounts, I can learn how to code, I can mow every bit of grass on the farm, I can repair things, I can manually find prospects. Capability is not in question. Opportunity cost is the test. What did that hour prevent you from doing? What else could have happened? Could you have spoken to a potential client? Could you have improved an offer? Could you have taken your child somewhere? Could you have gone riding? Could you have had lunch without staring at a screen? Could you have thought? This last one is huge. Founders need thinking space, and yet we fill every available gap with operational activity, and then we wonder why we struggle to think strategically. Now, there's a practical audit that you can do today. So I want to leave you with something practical. I want you to open your calendar from the last 7 days, not your planned calendar, your actual week, the week you've just lived. Look at what you really did. And for every activity, ask 4 questions. Did this genuinely need me? If yes, keep it. If it didn't need me, does it still need doing? If no, remove it. If it needs doing, could another person own it? If yes, delegate it. If the work follows predictable rules, could a system support or own it? If yes, that becomes your system list. Don't try and fix 50 things though, pick one. The thing that annoys you or bores you or makes you like, before you even start. Okay, and then ask one final question. What part of my life do I get back if I remove this? Because I think that question changes the emotional aspect of systems. You're no longer implementing automation. You're getting Wednesday afternoon back. You're getting school holidays back. You're getting your evenings back, or riding time back, or uninterrupted time for thinking. You're getting the ability to respond when something unexpected happens. Maybe you're getting breakfast in a treehouse. Who knows? Or perhaps you're getting enough room in your week to deal with the possibility that your enormous horse might be heading for Hollywood. That is the outcome. A calmer business is not a perfectly predictable business, and I think that is the final thing I want to say on this matter. A calmer business is not one where nothing goes wrong, and that isn't real. It isn't one where your calendar is perfect, or where your children never interrupt, or when there isn't opportunities to arrive conveniently between 2 and 4 on a Tuesday. A calm business is a business that can absorb life. Things move, plans change, people need you, opportunities appear, and the whole thing doesn't collapse. That is resilience, and that is what good systems are designed to create. And for me, that is the point, the very point of AI Alchemy. Not AI for AI's sake, not doing more, not cramming your diary with either greater efficiency, creating a business that needs less of your constant attention so you can give more of yourself to the things that actually matter. So this week, don't ask yourself how many more scheduled, how can I make my schedule more consistent? Ask, how can I make my business less dependent on my schedule? That one question will completely change how you build. And if one thing that currently disappears the moment life gets busy is prospecting, finding new qualified people to talk to, then have a look at Connection Scout, because that is precisely why it exists. To keep that part of your business moving even when your week has other plans, or frankly you just hate the prospecting part of things. And apparently, sometimes your plans could just involve a 2-ton movie star, which is what I'm going to be dealing with this afternoon. I'll leave you with that one, and I'll see you in the next live.